Welcome to the 100 Essential Questions, the ultimate guide to world-first numbers phenomena profession.
Your analysis is spot on, and everything you predicted has happened, but now I feel it's a bit expensive. Let me think about it. This is also a common issue we often face when promoting and sharing number phenomena. Why do you ask this question? You should always think from the essence. Why do you think it is expensive? What is the main reason? Because towards the value of number phenomena is not clear enough. Everyone who has taken number phenomena course knows that the improvements that number phenomena can bring to any aspect of life are incomparable to money. I had a customer who told me this before. He said, "Teacher, the most terrible thing in this world is to have no money." If you keep thinking this way, you will never truly be abundant in your life. Over the past decade or so, we have witnessed countless cases of people who are extremely wealthy, yet still encounter problems in life that money simply cannot solve. Let me share one of these cases with you. This particular case was introduced to me by one of my students in China. The owner of the mobile number is the boss of an international chain sports brand. This person's net worth? It should be several billion by now. In the eyes of those around him, he is extremely successful, the kind of person everyone considers to be truly wealthy. When my student introduced this boss to me, the gentleman was already over 60 years old. We have to understand for someone in their 60s what is most important. The most important thing is definitely health. Of course, this isn't just true for people in their 60s. Actually, for everyone in this world, the most precious thing is our health. Especially at the age of over 60, it is even more important for him. Why is health the most valuable? Because through the adjustment of number phenomena, we all know that whether it is career ability or income, your goals in all aspects of life can be improved visibly in the short term, but only health, dear everyone, only health. Once health problems arise, many times there really is no room to turn things around. Looking at this gentleman's mobile number, of course, to protect his privacy, we've hidden 2 digits. On the health level, anyone who has taken my course knows it's extremely obvious. Which positions are likely to cause illness? We can see that numbers like 9 to 86, 821, 869, 21, and so on all appear in his mobile number. What kinds of problems might occur? Very serious liver and kidney issues can arise, such as liver and kidney cirrhosis, liver and kidney lesions, liver and kidney failure, and even the risk of developing liver cancer is extremely high. Of course, this is closely related to his diet, his daily routines, and his mindset and emotions, because we know that no disease in this world comes out of nowhere. They accumulate bit by bit in our lives over 10 or 20 years. They accumulate over time, so when a disease appears, it is often already the result. And what we can see through number phenomena is the cause, the process of formation, and the outcome. So when we talk about disease, when we analyze it at the level of the result, we are not just explaining the outcome. We are explaining a definite result, an inevitable result, because it has been shaped over 10 or 20 years. Accumulated and formed. With this number combination, we can say that besides disease, it clearly leads to issues like divorce and remarriage. When we see this combination, we need to understand that when a 1-7 category and a 1-3 category are combined, with 1-7 in front and 1-3 behind, what does that represent? The number in front describes the one that follows. So what about 1-3? When defined in the context of relationship, we can see it as rather chaotic. Or it could refer to a family relationship that lacks management, or a family dynamic that is rather disorganized. In an ordinary family, this is more likely to manifest as arguments and quarrels, because in such a chaotic environment, conflicts are very likely to break out. It's a very lively atmosphere, you could say. But if we're talking about a situation where a publicly listed company is involved and the entire enterprise is affected, then this lack of management becomes even more significant. We should also note that 1-7 in front of 1-3 can describe its wealth management as well. In this context, the company's approach to wealth is extremely chaotic, very irrational, and seriously lacking in proper management. So once a problem arises within the family, it's like pulling one thread and the whole fabric unravels. It doesn't just cause disputes within the family, it can also affect the company and the person's career. Now, as for what comes next, we can see what 8218 represents, which we all know. 82 can be understood as referring to a person's relatives or family members. This is something we've explained in detail in our course. So 8218 can be understood as indicating what kind of situation has arisen among his relatives and family members, conflicts, divisions, and some irreparable, very difficult to resolve disputes. On the timeline, 8218 can also be interpreted as referring to his descendants, right? Among his descendants in the future, that is, as time goes on, these issues or problems may continue to exist or even become more pronounced within his family line. What kind of conflicts will occur and what impact will they have on his career? The impact is extremely significant. Such volatility and changes are something his business simply cannot withstand. So where does all of this actually originate from? When he is in good health, everything generally remains within his control. However, once his health starts to decline and these problems begin to erupt after his health deteriorates, when he can no longer manage things well, sudden and often irreversible changes will occur, changes that he simply cannot recover from. You should also know that each of our private consultation sessions typically lasts about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes even a bit longer depending on the situation. When we interpret a person's life through numbers, we say that even if we talked for 3 days and nights or 7 days and nights, we still couldn't cover everything because this is comprehensive information about a person's whole life. So if we have to explain it in 45 minutes to an hour, it must be the most important information for the client. It must be those pieces of information that, as long as he hears them, will bring him the greatest value for his future and lead to the most important breakthrough. So, for this elderly gentleman, what is the most important thing? Is it money? Is it relationships? Is it his career? For him at this stage, none of those are the most important. What matters most is his health, because once his health fails, there will be no way to recover. So I focused on explaining to him the health risks he might face. I explained that his numbers indicate a high risk of developing cirrhosis, liver and kidney failure, and even liver cancer. This could cause irreparable harm to his life. At the same time, I said that it's not just his own health. His son's numbers also indicate a high risk of developing liver cancer. You should know that when I talk about health issues, I always do so in a very serious and earnest manner because I understand that as long as the person listening is willing and able to see it, they can make the decision that could save their life. But you also need to realize that every day, I encounter a great many people. Every day, teachers and number consultants encounter many different individuals, so all we can do is try our best to share as much as we can. We have to present every matter truthfully before the user so that they can see that this is the most important information in their life. If they miss it, it could very well be irreversible. But we have to understand that each of us has limited time. When we extend this olive branch, the most important thing is that the user needs to seize this opportunity. However, in life, it's often very difficult for people to see things that haven't happened yet. Moreover, 90% of people live in a state of uncertainty, constantly facing the unexpected, not knowing what will happen tomorrow. In this kind of life situation, all we can do is try our best and act with sincerity.
You are now watching 100 Essential Questions, your ultimate guide to world first numbers phenomena profession.
At that time, he replied, "Teacher, 80% of what you said is correct. My personality is as you described, your assessment of my career is also accurate, and I have indeed had several relationships. Regarding my physical health, you were right. I have chronic hepatitis, and there is an issue with my liver. However, I don't think my health is a problem because my attending physician is a chief professor who used to work at the traditional Chinese medicine hospital of Fudan University. There's also the well-known traditional Chinese medicine Dr. Lin taking care of me. Over the years, I feel my health has actually been getting better. As for the family disputes you mentioned, I don't think those will happen. My little grandson is at Peking University, and my eldest son has his own business in the United States. Everything is harmonious. Moreover, my current wife treats my children as her own. She is wonderful. Being able to live like this is already very good for me. I don't need to change any numbers. But I do think what you said is quite interesting. Over the years, we've encountered so many cases that left us feeling deeply regretful and helpless. Sometimes we do our best to explain and persuade, just hoping to give a life one more chance to choose when there is still a choice. But for many lives, they simply can't see it. Over the years, we've seen far too many such cases. For others, it might just be a string of numbers. But for me, and for every consultant at Cosmo MK, we deeply understand that what you think is interesting, what you think is just a lucky or unlucky interpretation of a number, is actually a precious life. It's actually you in this world. The most precious thing is that, as humans, we cannot gain any benefit from things we do not know. But often, What we humans understand the least, know the least, and are the most unclear about is our own lives. So whether the client sees it or not, things will eventually happen. Why is that? That's why every time I do a consultation, I treat it as the most important moment of my life. I always explain things in the most serious, attentive, detailed, and genuine way possible. I offer heartfelt guidance because I know that for the person seeking help, this could very well be their last chance to make a choice in life. I'm not trying to be alarmist, nor am I trying to create anxiety. It's just that over the years, I've truly missed far too many opportunities simply because I didn't recognize that crucial moment of choice. And in the future, when something irreversible happens in their life, that sense of helplessness and regret is overwhelming. This case is exactly like that, one that fills me with deep regret and powerlessness. When I was analyzing the case, we can see it was in 2020. Then when time moved to 2021, just 1 year and 3 months later, this Chinese student of mine urgently contacted me. When he reached out, I was in the middle of a consultation. I didn't see his message at first. Later, when I saw the message, I learned that the elderly gentleman had passed away on the 18th, which was 2 days before he sent me the message. On the morning of the day he passed away, he suddenly began vomiting and shivering. By the time he was taken to the hospital, he was already vomiting blood. After the doctor's diagnosis, the conclusion was that the bleeding was caused by an esophageal rupture due to liver cancer. All of this information can be seen very clearly in his mobile number, including the esophageal rupture. Our advanced course students can all see this very clearly. At the same time, this student told me, "Teacher, that's not all. In his family, the children have different mothers, so there has been a huge conflict over the division of assets, and the household has become a complete mess." You should know that every time I hear news like this, I always feel extremely regretful and helpless. At first, when I encountered situations like this, I would feel heartbroken and deeply guilty because I thought that if only I had tried harder back then, or if I had spoken more forcefully, as long as he was willing to listen and willing to change, he would definitely still be alive now. Then the family wouldn't have to face all this pain either. I believe that for those of you who have just entered this profession, you are probably facing or will face this kind of inner conflict, this kind of struggle, this kind of heartache, this sense of helplessness. But what I want to tell you is that sometimes it's not just about us, no matter how hard you try or how accurately you analyze. The user themselves also needs to accept this opportunity, this chance to make a choice. When you reach out your hand while standing at the edge of a cliff, the person who is about to fall off that cliff also needs to see it. They also need to firmly grasp your hand. As teachers, we often do this. When I talk about a problem, my thinking tends to branch out, and I reflect very deeply, sharing a lot of heartfelt thoughts with you. Now let's return to the question itself. The question is, the teacher, the number consultant's analysis is very accurate, and what they described has also happened in my life, but I feel it's a bit expensive, so I need to think about it. When you truly understand the meaning and function of number phenomena in your life, you will no longer measure the solutions and value they bring to your life in terms of money. You need to see, just like in this case, cases where people are extremely wealthy. Over the years, I have met many people just like the subject of this case. For them, making systematic adjustments is financially a very simple matter. In fact, the money they spend each month seeing so-called renowned doctors is far higher than the cost of the comprehensive, lifelong improvement plan we can provide. Yet all the money they spend on these so-called experts has not brought any real change to their lives. What fundamental effect has it really had? Because we need to understand that whether it's medication or surgery, what hospitals and doctors can offer us is usually only addressing the symptoms that have resulted from diseases accumulated over many years. In other words, their work and efforts are focused on dealing with the outcomes. But if you don't change the root cause, the disease will just keep recurring in your life again and again. This is a principle that everyone can understand. The same goes for failed investments. Why do so many people go through multiple divorces and marriages, divorcing and remarrying over and over, and even their own children face the same situation? It's all because of the fundamental underlying reasons behind these issues. If your way of interacting, your patterns of thinking, your mindset, your behavioral and lifestyle habits, your way of speaking, if none of these change, then naturally the outcomes will not change either. The seeds you sow will continue to produce the same consequences. The mistakes that lead to illness, the mistakes that cause conflict, the results of failed investments, and the outcomes of divorce. This is why, despite this elderly gentleman spending so much money on medical treatment and healthcare, in the end, nothing fundamentally changed, and he still ended up with illness as a result. Yet several years ago, through his number phenomena, we could already clearly see what kind of outcome he would have. Because through numerical patterns, we see the root cause information. In fact, many doctors are specialists in cardiovascular diseases, yet they still develop cardiovascular problems. Doctors cannot heal themselves. So this is why sometimes we feel so helpless and heartbroken, because we know the opportunity is right in front of us. It's just a matter of whether you choose to see it or not. So when this seemingly wealthy old gentleman faced what appeared to be a sudden illness and passively watched his life come to an end, do you think money and material things still truly mattered to him? They simply don't matter anymore. In fact, they're completely meaningless. If, more than a year ago, he had been willing to see, to face, and to make that change, then perhaps those billions would still have meant something to him. But when something like this happens, for him, whether there are a few $100s or several billion in the bank, listen carefully, there's absolutely no difference to him. So, coming back to the core of this issue, your analysis is all very accurate, everything has already happened, but I just feel it's a bit expensive and I need to go back and think about it. When we are earnestly sharing and encounter this kind of issue, what I want to tell everyone is, when the user realizes that what number phenomena can truly solve is something that no amount of money can fix, then they will no longer say it's expensive. It's still up to him to weigh it because it's his own life. At the same time, every student learning about number phenomena and every one of our consultants knows that number phenomena are not just about your own life, they also further shape and influence the life of your next generation. Do you remember what I just talked about? I reminded this gentleman that not only does his own number indicate a risk of liver disease, but his son's number also carries a very high risk of liver disease, specifically liver cancer. At the time, he thought it was an interesting conversation, but he didn't take it to heart. Unfortunately, about a year after this gentleman passed away from liver cancer, his son had to have 70% of his liver removed due to liver cancer in May 2022. Why did they choose to remove 70%? Because we need to know that if less than 30% of our liver remains, there is no possibility for the liver to regenerate. So when we look at this situation, you will understand. Why do we work so hard to share about numbers? Why do we insist on staying at the forefront to share? Because cases like this are all too common in our lives. These kinds of cases, which leave us feeling helpless, regretful, and full of pity, are countless. We can clearly see in his son's mobile number the similarities with the father's. Every student can see in the father's number there is 986, and in the son's number there is 712. If you don't understand or haven't studied number phenomena, to you, these are just two completely different sets of numbers. These numbers seem meaningless, but after studying numbers, you'll see they're actually two sets from the same number category, carrying rich significance in life. For such sequences, we need to understand what the teacher mentioned as the cause of this liver cancer. When number sequences like the 7 1 to 2 category or the 8 to 9 to 6 category, where the 1 7 and 1 2 categories are combined, what kind of meaning do they convey and what kind of information do they present? These numbers indicate a severe lack of control over eating and drinking habits. So we need to understand that if you eat and drink excessively and without restraint over a long period, what else can such number sequences easily lead to? When it comes to smoking, there is a lack of restraint. If you stay in this state of excessive eating, drinking, and smoking long term, the harm and toxin buildup are unimaginable. At the same time, people with the 712 number set are also very likely to put themselves in chaotic situations, living in unsanitary environments, places that are noisy, chaotic, and lack proper hygiene management. So, this number combination is very prone to viral infections. We should also know that they are also very susceptible to overwork. Numbers like this are also likely to cause extreme mood swings and temper fluctuations. In addition to this, we should be aware that apart from the 712 number combinations, we can also see that there is another similar or identical number combination between the father and the son. Those of us who have studied number phenomena know that most family members share the same or similar number combinations. This explains why within a family there are often similar illnesses and similar life experiences. Why do children get divorced when their parents have divorced? Why do children have mental health issues when their parents do? All of this is reflected in your number phenomena. We can see that both the father's and child's numbers have an 821 number set. Both share this combination. What does it represent in mindset and emotions? It shows a long-term state of high pressure, repression, anxiety, depression, irritability, etc. So, the number combinations of father and son reflect not only their physical but also psychological states. All of these are the underlying causes of diseases that accumulate over the long term. We need to understand that all the root causes we've mentioned above have irreversible negative effects on the liver as an organ. You should know that each person's epigenetics and genes are recording your every emotion every day. You may think you've forgotten, but your gene expression and your numerical patterns have clearly recorded it all. Of course, everyone watching this should understand that just because you have these numbers, it doesn't mean you will definitely develop liver cancer. Each of us has different combinations of numbers, and their effects in our lives vary. It's just that having these numbers means your risk of developing liver disease is much, much higher than for those who don't have them. This brings us back to what we just discussed. A person's phone number affects not only the individual, but also the whole family and its legacy. That's why, when we see the same number combinations among family members' phone numbers, we have to ask why. It's because every action, habit, mindset, and temperament you and your family members have are interconnected. It doesn't just stop with you, it will also, in an invisible way, influence your next generation. And for your next generation, these number phenomena will be clearly recorded as part of their lives. You are now watching 100 Essential Questions, the ultimate guide to world first number phenomena. So, by learning about number phenomena or making systematic improvements, the person you help is not just yourself, but also the continuation of your life. When you come to realize this, you'll see that the value of number phenomena is something that no amount of money, time, or effort can buy. That's why many of our students often say this. Any achievement you gain at Cosmo MK is something money simply can't buy. Just a few days ago, one of my longtime students, she's a female CEO, as well as a responsible mother and a good wife. At that time, she introduced her friend to learn about number phenomena. My number consultant, using her friend's number, was able to accurately analyze and identify that her friend was already experiencing serious health problems. At that time, her friend agreed, admitting she had such health issues. However, when it came to making adjustments, she felt it was expensive and wanted to go home and think about it. My student, the female CEO, after hearing this response, replied to her, "This price, you can't even buy a designer bag for this price, and yet your health problems have already appeared, and you're facing obstacles in your career. The solution is right in front of you. I don't understand what you're still hesitating about." At that time, she told her friend, "I sincerely want to tell you, if you compare this to any other aspect of improvement in your life right now, it is absolutely worth it. It's not expensive at all. I introduced you to the number phenomena because seeing you struggle, I wanted to help. It has helped me and my family. That's a fact." She helped her husband, children, and father all applied the systematic adjustment solution, individual life code. She did this because she saw how valuable number phenomena are in life. You should know this is not an isolated case, but a common experience shared by many students and number consultants. After many students learn about number phenomena, what happens? They discover that the life obstacles they've struggled with for years, repeatedly wrestling with and unable to overcome, can actually be resolved. I once had a student tell me, "Teacher, if I could turn back time, I would definitely tell myself not to hesitate for even a moment. Make this choice right away." Why did he say this? Because what you are facing now is not just a product, not just a service, not just a piece of advice, but an opportunity to completely transform your life. Hearing this, some friends might say, "Teacher, I'm not wealthy. My financial situation isn't good and I'm struggling economically. For me, the cost of learning and making adjustments is indeed a burden." But we must understand, as we just mentioned, this is a matter of mindset. I completely understand how you feel at this moment, but we have to honestly face one thing: the financial difficulties, conflicts, and setbacks you are currently experiencing in life. All of these stems from your own abilities, awareness, personality, mindset, behavioral habits, and every choice you have made in your life. And all of these things are fully and completely reflected in the information revealed by your number phenomena. So if your number phenomena cannot be changed, the setbacks, conflicts, and current financial problems you face in life will not be resolved in any way. In fact, as you get older, these burdens will only become heavier. At the same time, over the years, we have encountered many such cases. Most people, when they are young, face obstacles in their careers and all kinds of hardships in life. we need to understand that these things place a very heavy burden and pressure on both your mind and your body. Often, these burdens, pressures, and excessive consumption manifest as real psychological or physical illnesses after middle age. So, as I always say, nothing is more important than your health. Once illness strikes, you won't even have the chance or the ability to work hard anymore. And all the problems you are facing right now are already reflected in your number phenomena. Through studying or adjusting your unique numbers, you can see tangible improvements in your career, abilities, relationships, and all aspects of life. But you must understand, once illness arrives, you lose the right to choose. As the saying goes, when illness strikes, it comes crashing down like a mountain. Everything happens passively and beyond your control. Of course, there are many people who are already suffering from late-stage cancer or have been dealing with very serious chronic illnesses for years. So at such stage, dear friends, can seeking improvement and solutions through number phenomena help you achieve betterment? Yes, it can bring improvement, but by that point, all we can do is work and make adjustments based on the illnesses that have already developed. We need to understand that our physical health, especially when we are faced with situations where organs have already been removed or when there is significant mental and physical damage, sometimes cannot be repaired. So we must be clear about certain losses. No matter how much money you spend, you can never get them back. Don't give up your chance to choose your life because of obstacles. Number consultants, every student who has taken my courses, and I know there is only one purpose in studying and sharing number phenomena. It is simply to hope that more people, more lives, can make choices when they have the opportunity to do so. Please remember, nothing is more important than your life. When you have no choices, no matter what material possessions or money you have, they become meaningless in your life. What I want to say is, this is your life and nothing is more precious than your own life. In the process of analysis, we act as interpreters. Through your unique numbers, we can clearly see the origins, processes, and outcomes of every event that happens in your life. All we can do is to seriously, truthfully, and clearly lay out the pros and cons that exist in your life before you. In the end, the one who makes the choice is you yourself. What I want to tell you is that nothing is more precious than your own life. Each of us only gets one ticket to this journey called life. And for your life, it truly is worth it, because number phenomena are a reflection of your life itself. Whether or not you choose to understand or study them, you are experiencing them throughout your entire life. Believe me, you are worthy of this opportunity.